Hey, what's up? I don't really know how to start this, but this is going to be the start of my ReZero Read Aloud series. I'm not sure what I'm going to try to go for. Maybe kind of an ASMR kind of thing, I don't know. I will be whispering most of the episodes, or the chapters, if not all of them, if that's the direction I decide to go in. Because I'm usually doing this at night when my aunt's asleep. It's already midnight right now, so yeah. I'm going to be starting with arc 6, but if I enjoy doing this and want to go reread the previous arcs, I might go reread arc 5, since that's the one that hasn't been animated yet, etc. But I've already read arc 5, so I'd rather just read arc 6 and then also get this done while doing it. Anyways, I just bought this Blue Yeti today, actually. I don't have a pop filter for it yet, so sorry if you hear that. I'm trying not to pop super hard, and also I have a mask over it for however much that's worth. Oh, and before starting, I'd also like to add that these translations were taken from the Witch Cult Translations website translation of the ReZero web novel. I'll make sure to link them in the description of every video, and some chapters aren't translated by the Witch Cult, so I'll link where I found those chapters. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. I hope my voice isn't too obnoxious or anything, and I guess let's just get right into arc 6. Alright, so we'll be starting from arc 6, chapter 1, and the chapter's name is The Dragon's Carriage's Way Back. Natsuki Subaru's group continued to head directly towards east upon leaving the city of Prostella. They headed towards the eastern end of the world, an area that contains the Agria Sand Dunes, which was a plot of land with a rich history of demon beasts that have continued to exist for hundreds of years, rejecting every existence from stepping foot onto their territory. It contained a miasma that would cause travelers to lose their sense of direction and gnawed at their hearts. It contained groups of demon beasts as evil vanguards who would indulge themselves in playing with people's lives. And then there was a person who sought for world peace, that person at the watchtower who determined each and every one of the successes and failures made by those who came close. That person was the sage, Shala. Subaru, just from knowing that, it feels like we're lining up for suicide. Just being reminded of the obstacles that lie ahead was enough to cause dejection. In reality, the beings that headed towards the place, while knowing what lies ahead, were perhaps beings like suicidal people, or perhaps witch worshippers. At any rate, it seemed like they were nothing but beings who had brain abnormalities. However, these people were neither of the above, as they had no intention to die. It was rather the opposite. They intended to live. They would provide a path of life in response to each and every one of the people who had lost their lives on another path. They began this expedition in order to obtain this seed of hope. Subaru. Nevertheless, it is mysterious. Subaru, who was isolated by the members who were sitting up front, whispered these words while continuing to imagine the jolting of the dragon carriage that didn't actually shake. When the people in the guest room heard us whisper, every single member had their eyes turned towards Subaru. A total of 4 glances came his way. Adding in Subaru to the people who were in the carriage would make a total of 5 passengers. This is what the situation looked like. Amelia. Mysterious. Did something happen? Subaru. No, it's nothing important, Amelia Town. It's just, well, when one of our dragons that we amiably ride with made a face, I just thought to myself, she is a pretty startling part of her. Subaru responded this way as he brushed off Amelia's question. Amelia and Beatrice were located to Subaru's right and his left as they secured both sides. These were his allies. It was given that these 2 people would be with Subaru, but still, the question at hand would be the people up front. Julius. Well, it may very well have been normal for you to feel like such. Actually, I too thought it was really startling. It would be natural for Natsuki-kun to feel uncomfortable, huh? Anastasia. That's right. The person who let out a high-pitched laughter and said this in her Kansai dialect, a dialect that was fixed to the Kararagi dialect, was Anastasia. After the powerless sadist responded in her Kansai dialect, she looked directly towards him with a meaningful look while feeling her hair. Anastasia. Although you might not be as bad as Julius if we're only talking about things like comforting ridicule. Julius. That's harsh. However, please do not worry. I am also a knight at heart. Just a single night is enough for me to adjust my heart. Not to mention, the last 3 days have already been. I promise never to show a sight that was similar to yesterday's shamefulness ever again. Anastasia. How elegant. We shall be expecting as such, then, perhaps. Julius bowed and replied in response to Anastasia's banter-like way of speaking because of the incident from before. It was something that would be obvious if you claimed it to be so. He received damage from Gluttony's authority, but it more specifically had effects on all of his friends rather than the effects on himself. It affected anybody but himself. Therefore, the people that changed their behavior were his friends rather than himself. He did not conceal his disturbance when he received these reactions, and on top of that, relating to what he had just said before, it seems like his friends no longer accepted this with ease. Subaru, you're astounding. He let out this praise with a voice that wouldn't acknowledge the significance of things. The weak part about him was not able to clearly express great praise. It wasn't as if Subaru could forget that feeling as well, the feeling of having your own existence being left behind, having nobody around to share the memories of your own. Natsuki Subaru definitely had recollections of this different world that nobody remembered, as he could go back in time with his ability, returned by death. If he were to recall a single experience where he built up connections only to have them lost deep down, it would perhaps be the Rosewall Mansion's initial, the repeated days at the Rosewall Mansion. He got summoned into a different world, ran around doing all kinds of things at the king's capital to help Amelia, and then, as a result, he was invited to Rosewall's mansion. He then experienced 4 iterations of events before stepping foot into the 5th world. The memories up until the 4th world were held within Subaru and nowhere else. Even now, it was difficult to forget the shock he felt from being treated as a stranger by people who he had built relationships with in those days at the mansion. That pain and sadness would never fade away. Beatrice. What is it, Subaru? Why have you suddenly started petting Betty's head? Subaru. Don't worry about it. That's just my deep emotions that say, I seriously got saved that time thanks to you. Thank you. Beatrice. I don't understand, I suppose. Also, my hair is getting messed up, so stop. Actually, you don't have to stop, but pet it just a little softer. Beatrice gave her head to Subaru as she occupied her half of the seat with her butt. Subaru petted her head just like how she asked for, not allowing her to forget his mind's condition when he was truly saved. The only person who didn't change their feelings towards Subaru during the loop of the days at the mansion was Beatrice. They met before the beginning of the return by death. She remained to be the only person to not change how she'd come in contact with Subaru after that as well. Moreover, she too would keep the fact that she saved him as an eternal secret. Subaru. After that, Amelia-tan saved me, huh? Amelia made a curious face in response to Subaru's reminiscence. Subaru was right here at this moment because he was saved by her kindness, voice, attitude, and the warmth of her lap that she gave. This is how Subaru was able to recognize Julius's impressiveness of accomplishing things by himself as an actuality. Subaru could do this because of how he gained his triumphs. He got as much help as he could. As time elapsed, he tried to get things right 4 times. Or maybe it was because a certain someone would be there to lend him his help. A certain someone that wasn't forgotten by Anastasia. A certain someone who didn't seek help from anyone in his own camp. A certain someone who had his ties severed with the spirits whom he'd contracted with. A certain someone whose blood-related brother didn't remember him either. If that was the case, then he'd be grateful for him. Amelia. Continuing to stare at people's faces like that, is something wrong, Subaru? Subaru. It's nothing. I just thought of letting you know that you're beautiful and I love the you who smiles with a sense of elegance. Julius. Beautifully elegant. That indeed has a splendid sound to it. I never expected to receive praise from you. I'm surprisingly happy, or well, that may be an exaggeration. Well, isn't my beautiful elegance a given? Subaru. I didn't mean to praise you, though you do kind of piss me off when you say it like that. With the same manner from his past, or rather, with his reaction that made it seem as if he had been even more skilled with the slipping of the tongue, Subaru became the one to be annoyed. It was hard to take in the evident frailness that was on his face when he was at his brother's hospital room at Pristella. He was spirited in the past, and Subaru had recollections of the times when a lack of satisfaction was evident in his expression. However, all that is completely forgotten history now. Amelia, you and Julius get along well. Like how you guys are right now, and just like how you guys were in your talk. Subaru, Amelia 10, you got it wrong. There's no way me and this guy get along well. Did you see my face? My eyes had the scariest look ever. Although, that is just my viewpoint. Amelia, really? I don't think you're right, but, I'm not talking about the look you had in your eyes. I'm talking about when you said that you two didn't get along well. Subaru's eyes had the same level of extreme scariness as always. Subaru, the same level of extreme scariness as always? Amelia, well, for me, I love Subaru's eyes. I'm being truthfully truthful. Subaru, ah, damn it. How I wish that part about my eyes was left out from the audio recording. Amelia let out a wry smile as she filled Subaru with regret. She then turned towards Julius with an inquisitive look, causing him to take a glance towards Subaru. Amelia, I myself have no room to deny those words. In reality, to say that me and him are close wouldn't be a proper thing to say, although in my eyes we are compromising with each other, despite how things may look. Subaru, to put it as compromising, that's really condescending, even more deprecating. It'll probably piss him off now. Amelia, it's difficult to put it. I wonder what we should say to him. He sought for Amelia's agreement on his opinion of Julius, but she reacted to their exchanges by brushing up her hair and, Subaru, just as I thought, we are really close, right? Julius, come on, that's already clear. Subaru, well, I guess we are close then. Subaru had a disagreement with Amelia, but Subaru and Julius acted as if nothing happened. This made Amelia become more and more baffled. Anastasia tried to hold herself back from laughing, letting out chuckles with a smile. Anastasia's reaction caused Julius to suddenly loosen his lips, as if indicating that he had calmed down. That transient master and servant relationship was hardly suspicious to Subaru, being someone who's familiar with the opposite situation. The Anastasia hand differed from the genuine Anastasia Hoshin, because she was only on the same side of the spectrum for fakes. Anastasia's body is a body that the artificial spirit Echidna, nicknamed being Aridna, is currently using. This so-called Aridna had no intentions of capturing her body, but he was unsure of how much he could trust her. Being someone who is aware of this situation, the one thing that Subaru did not fail to do was look out for Amelia and Julius, who both were unaware of the situation, while trying to avoid providing enlightenment at the same time. Beatrice, Subaru, cut it out. Beatrice said these words to Subaru, who was surely in a state of deep thought. This girl's hair was in a messy state, as Subaru was petting her head all throughout this period of silence. Her cute face had a sour look. Subaru, oh, my bad, Biako. Your cute appearance is a mess. Your hair's all messed up now. Beatrice, perhaps you shouldn't make it sound like Betty's cuteness is ruined just from her hairdo. Moreover, your face is starting to look scary. Subaru lifted his butt off of his half of the seat as Beatrice said these words while frantically fixing her messed hair up with his hands. Subaru let out an "oh," preventing himself from talking, as Beatrice held a face that made it look like she was indifferent to such incompetence. Beatrice, there's no point in making such an excessively worrisome face, I suppose. Betty will take care of it. If there's something, Betty is much quicker than Subaru when it comes to noticing it. Subaru, yeah. Beatrice said these things in response to Subaru's anxiety. This was Beatrice, the other person who knew about Arinna and how she is occupying Anastasia. They promised 2 assertions that would conceal the truth. These 2 assertions were, first, Subaru would avoid causing any unnecessary commotion about it, and second, make sure that Arinna had no intentions to steal Anastasia's body away from her. However, Beatrice would be the only one to realize when something would be too late. These were the 2 beings that were the same type of artificial spirit who had the same type of relationship with the witch Echidna. If it seems like Aridna was planning something, Beatrice would surely sense it. Although, if we were to consider Beatrice's emotions, he didn't feel like it would be very advisable for Beatrice to get involved with Echidna, but... Beatrice, putting your unnecessary suspicions aside, It's fine that you acted like yourself and sought help from anybody without caring about who it was, just like you always have. Though you came to Betty first, I suppose. I'll give you my praise for this time on that. She replied with this, so that was that. Amelia, I see it. Just when I thought that the dragon carriage went into a state of silence, Amelia suddenly whispered these words. It seemed that Amelia saw their destination afar in her eyes as she looked out the window of the dragon carriage. Subaru also understood how the view out the window was changing into familiar scenery. Subaru, what a nostalgic path. We'll arrive at Roswell's mansion soon, huh? He murmured these words, first making sure to restrain his feelings from being near their first checkpoint, remembering their original goal. This group's destination, the same destination as the one at the start, was the Algria sand dunes, the place where they would speak with the sage Shala. However, they had already arranged to stop by Roswell's mansion on the way as to prepare for their trip to make such a long expedition. There were many things that they wanted to talk to the camp about, including the incident at Pristella and the occasion of getting to speak with the sage. Also, moreover, Subaru, it's not just a simple stop, okay? There's meaning behind dropping by Roswell's mansion before beginning their expedition to see the sage. The meaning would be the meagerness of the small world when seen through large eyes, but through Natsuki Subaru's small human eyes, it would be the meaning of great possibility. Subaru squinted his eyes to vision the distant mansion that could not yet be seen. Each of the 4 people in the dragon carriage were looking at Subaru. They had various emotions in the colors of their eyes, but Subaru had no composure to take notice of any of their glances. It was later than 1 hour past noon when the dragon carriage arrived at Roswell's mansion. The long migration from Pristella City, which has gone on for only 10 days, went on a temporary hold. Petra. Subaru. Oh, Petra. Whoa. They rode the Earth Dragons towards Roswell's mansion, gave their thanks to the male driver, and then got off. A petite maid ran towards Subaru from the mansion and jumped at him with unrestrained force. She came into his chest with her might and force, and Subaru somehow managed to catch her while backing up. He then petted the head of the girl he flew into his arms. Subaru. Petra, if you do that so suddenly you'll startle me, you know. I've been gone for nearly a month now, but have you all been doing well? Petra. It's been fine, as you can tell. However, Subaru has been having it rough, right? I've been worried ever since that letter came in 2 days ago. You were injured so much again, right? Can you handle the pain? Petra touched Subaru's body to confirm his pain as her brown, dyed hair with a tinge of red swung back and forth. Subaru reacted to this with a wry smile, and then everyone else got off the dragon carriage. Subaru. Hey Petra, do your job as a maid properly. If you don't, Ram and Frederica will get mad at you. Petra. Okay, tell me about what happened later. She returned promptly, but it seemed like Petra's trust was thoroughly damaged. Petra's worry would be inevitable if he told her about how he had gotten involved in what seemed to be an uproar that affected the whole city to try and obtain the stone, though it wasn't an uproar that Subaru intended to cause for the witch's cult. However, that excuse would also be meaningless. It would be meaningless, considering the truth was that most of the witch cult's purposes were related to Amelia's camp. Petra. Welcome guests. Compliments to your efforts to make this long trip. I am Petra Light, a maid of the family. I will be your guide towards the mansion. Subaru's recollections were put aside, and then Petra let out a vocal message that was similar to one that you'd hear upon entering a temple. Julius took Anastasia's hand to help her get off the carriage, and they both descended with looks of admiration on their face. Amelia and Beatrice's somewhat prideful looks on their faces were also visible. Anastasia. You're quite the fit one even though you're little, huh? You're being thorough with your training. Julius. It certainly seemed like Subaru was a completely different person with his behavior after she jumped at him, huh? Anastasia. An embarrassing sight. Julius agreed with the smiling Anastasia, and then Petra's face started to blush from what they had said. Julius looked down at her, and then proceeded to look at Subaru. Then, Julius, I see. So you're making people more and more fond of praising you as a lollymancer. Subaru, I'll have you know, Petra isn't as small as a little girl, and even if you call me that, the only little girl I use is Bayako. Get your facts straight. Beatrice. Betty also isn't a girl that works hard to be used by Subaru at his convenience, I suppose. Subaru, you should get your facts straight as well. Subaru replied to Julius's banter in a cold way, and then Beatrice rebuked Subaru in an even colder manner. Subaru's mouth turned into a frown. He became silent, and Beatrice let out a sigh. She then looked at Petra's lower area. She stood with her, and then made a slight movement to grab onto the edge of her skirt. Beatrice. Also, look, not much has changed throughout Betty and Petra's time, I suppose. Wait a second. Betty feels like Petra has grown a bit. Her hair has grown out a bit too, I suppose. Petra. It's because 1 month has passed, and it's also my growth period right now. My back will grow and my hair will grow too, if I don't cut it. Beatrice's chin will stay small though. Beatrice. What the... Petra hugged Beatrice tightly. He let out a smile as she became astonished. She continued to hug Beatrice, who had an angry face, for a sufficient amount of time, and then walked away as she said, "Well then, allow me to guide you all." Subaru. All right, we'll finally be going to the... He sought to follow her, but then someone grabbed onto the back of his neck with their hands. When he raised his voice with a blocked throat and looked back, he surprisingly found out that Amelia was the one who grabbed onto his neck. The dragon carriage from the back jerked Subaru's chin, while Amelia held onto the back of his neck. Amelia. Subaru, Petresh doesn't seem to be happy. Anastasia. This has become a selfish situation, huh? If you were to look at the Earth Dragons when Amelia made this point, out of the 2 Earth Dragons that they traveled with, you notice that the beautiful jet black Earth Dragon was glaring at Subaru with frightfully harsh eyes. This was Subaru's affectionate dragon, Petresh. When Subaru tried to return her look, she turned away bluntly. She then let out a light but very displeased sound. Amelia, you seriously weren't able to make up with her even though you had 10 days, huh? Subaru. Yeah, I know, but I really don't think it's my fault this time. Subaru scratched his head as he thought about what to do with Petresh, who was leaning onto his belly. Regarding the troubles that Petresh helped Subaru with up until now, looking back he'd see that ever since they left Pristilla City, or well, let's move a bit before that. When he went to the Earth Dragon's stable after defending off the witch's cult, he was already in a bad mood. He did not want to talk to Petresh, as he didn't want to leave Otto with his injuries. She was understanding, simply because they've known each other for a long time. This affectionate dragon also tried to understand Subaru's anger over time. Subaru. Well, I know I neglected her during the uproar, and that I even made her feel lonely, but... Amelia. Subaru. Subaru was on the very end of his statement when Petresh swung her tail at him, causing him to become covered in dirt after taking a direct hit. As expected, Petresh had no mercy in her attacks. If he were to reply to her in a deceitful way, she would come to strike him without any hesitation. Subaru. I would never have expected it. To think that I'd have too much protection after lacking protection against Regulus's attack is just... Amelia, are you alright? Petresh decided to suddenly shake her tail again, but doesn't this mean that you'll get hit once more if you don't say the right thing? He received assistance from Amelia as she gave him her lap, and then he stood up as he heard Amelia's terrifying point. He looked at Petresh, and she certainly was there shaking her long tail. She cut through the air with the end of her tail as if to threaten Subaru. It felt like she was saying that she'd double the power for each mistake he'd make. He unconsciously lost the ability to speak properly, and his throat became cramped as he realized he couldn't afford to reply carelessly. Julius, even if you're careless like that, your Earth Dragon has an overwhelming amount of sympathy towards you anyway. However, that statement made by Julius, who disheartened at the start of his guidance, would cause an undesirable effect if to come to Subaru. Subaru pointed at himself and Petresh in response to Julius's argument, and Subaru, really? I'm kinda covered in all this dirt, you know? You call this sympathy? Julius, if you've ever felt proof of deep affection, you'd understand, wouldn't you? It's an emotional and complicated Earth Dragon. She's mad that she wasn't able to help you during that uproar, and she's mad at you for not seeking her help. So, it might just be a natural emergence of feelings rather than anger towards you. Subaru, what are you saying? Just how high are you going to make her heroin power? Stop it. The level of correctness of Julius's points was unknown, but at the very least, his words made Patrash's tail swinging come to an end. Subaru looked at Patrash once again, and she turned away, just like always. But, Amelia, looking at her now, it seems like she's kind of embarrassed after hearing that. Subaru, Amelia-tan, you noticed that too? I also noticed that. It makes my heart flutter, so don't do that too often, please, Patrash. He said these words, reached out nervously with his hand, and then Patrash finally lowered her head, allowing Subaru to touch her body covered with tough scales. And with this, it seems like the Cold War, where he had 10 days to make amends, ended on a good note. Petra, isn't that enough? Is everything fine now? Petra was showing her impatience as they continued to stay at the mansion's front garden without paying attention to the time. She came out here being instructed to guide them, and yet they still ate up so much time. Petra, if we don't return soon, Ram Ne-sama will get mad and... Ram, if you can worry about those things, that means you were just a little bit short on your efforts. Petra, who had been making light sounds with her footsteps, let out a shriek and then straightened her back. When she turned back, she saw a pink-haired maid coming from afar from the direction of the mansion. It was Ram, make no mistake or doubt about it. Ram slowly turned her gaze towards Subaru's group, and the guards after Petra became as still as a stone statue from her glare, and... Ram, even when I thought that you'd got better at your work, to see this situation when I was just about to recognize your efforts, Ram is really disappointed. Petra, sorry, Ram Ne-sama, about my work. You were about to recognize me? Ram, yes. Your cooking is better than Ram's. Your cleaning is more sensible than Ram's. You're doing better at laundry than Ram, and you wake up earlier than Ram. So I was close to recognizing you. Subaru, you should have more doubt when you point these things out. Just how worse was this veteran maid in comparison to this girl who had 1 year of experience as a maid? Even if you were to take Petra's ability to learn quickly into account, the hurdle was so low that it wasn't even worth considering. Ram snorted her nose in a way that Subaru was completely familiar with in this response to his shouting, and... Ram, how does one proceed to have doubt about oneself? Ram only holds expectations and self-confidence for herself. Subaru, I've always felt like that part of you is the one thing that really deserves respect. Subaru responded to Ram's majestic declaration like this while being astounded. In reality, there was reason in learning from Ram's optimism. Or rather, there was reason in learning from her fortitude. He just wished that she would be a little bit more reflective on herself. But, Subaru, if you did that, I guess it wouldn't really feel like you're the real Ram, huh? Ram, that's a scary thought. Moreover, I don't think it'd be ideal to have guests out here for so long, so let's hurry up and enter the mansion. Subaru went into agreement in response to Ram's dismissive words. They had up too much time outside the mansion. It wouldn't be surprising for Frederica and even Rosewall to show up eventually if they ended up wasting any more time. Candidates of the king's election and the chief of the territory were gathered, but the question was what they were doing. Subaru, is Rosewall making his way toward the mansion? Ram, who had begun walking to guide the others, tapped Petra's shoulder to relieve her stiffness. When Amelia tried to call out to Ram from behind, she replied with a yes without taking a look back. Ram, fortunately, he said that you could all stay at the mansion when the letter came in. He left it with that. There was a summary in the letter about Pristella, and there should be things that are filled with details in there. Subaru, yeah, there should be, considering a lot of things did happen. Ram, there's a complete difference in the amount of people here now in comparison to when you first left. Huh. Did Garf and Otto die? Subaru, like hell I'd let them die. They aren't dead. I was just late in returning to them and they were left with injuries. When he sought to ask about the details that were in the letter, his comedic retort came out instead. Ram let out a shrug with an indifferent matter in response. Ram, I'm all too familiar with the depths of men who lack composure. Barsu's especially is one that has an open hole where your contents are being poured out, so you should be careful. To have people become aware of your depths and then finding out that you're empty inside is the worst. Subaru, that really hurts, so cut that out. Also, moreover, if the letter that was sent to the mansion from Postella before their departure, If those details were written in the letter, they should understand that this wasn't just a simple trip back for Subaru and the others. Therefore, when Subaru tried to confirm the contents of the second half of the letter, and when he decided on his words, Ram readily raised her finger. Ram, I told you, didn't I? Don't worry. Roswell said you're free to stay. Also, preparations have been made for both the Sleeping Beauty and the confinement room. Although... She cut off her words towards Subaru at the end and then gently licked her lips. She wet her lips with the red tip of her tongue with a gesture that had a sense of gracefulness embellished somewhere within it, and said this. Ram, although neither of them were Ram's doings, it was Frederica and Petra's job. Subaru, why did you make such a prideful face there? Anyhow, even if this was a meeting after a whole month, she still remained to be the same like this.